All right, we're going to be talking about the basics of Google Sheets. As you can see from our agenda here, we're going to start with the nice simple stuff. I'm not going to go too terribly in depth because a lot of this we've already kind of covered in some of the other Google applications. Most of it is much the same, but let's just go ahead and start from the top here. So borders and colors. We'll open up a Google Sheet here. You've got all kinds of fun options along the top here. First one here, borders. These can be really helpful because they can help you clearly outline your data. These are easy you can change them in several different ways. You can do all around the place. You can do just internal borders. You can also do just an outline if you want to just specifically square up a certain set of data. So real simple. And then colors. Shouldn't be anything too terribly surprising here. The same kind of color palette that we've seen before. You can highlight the cells that you have selected, make them look the way you want to highlight particular data maybe. You also see some alternating colors. Hal kind of went into this before, where you can pick some different styles, which will then change how it looks within the selected range. Or if you just hit the entire sheet, it'll do the whole thing. Well, should do the whole thing.
You have to remove that one.
Yep. And try it again. Nope, still doesn't like it because it's only applying it to the, well, you get the idea. The more you select, the more it should do. All right, moving on. Font size and alignment. So for this one, in default stays in Arial. You can see I had Times New Roman in there. This can be good if you want to choose some different styles to outline specific types of data, something along those lines. It's good to have those options there. You can also see that while there isn't quite as robust a list of different fonts, you can find more fonts if you really need them. Typically, though, you'll probably be fine just leaving it in the Arial format. You can switch it to some other ones, though, if need be, to highlight some specific data points. And then we got the size and the alignment, just like any of the other word processing documents. You can change the size of the font, make it bigger, so it'll fill up the entire range. The nice thing is that it will automatically adjust the size of the cells to match the size of the font, so you don't have to worry about that. It'll always fit within the appropriate size, and it'll shrink it back down if you change it again. You can set the font by individual cells as well. I should have mentioned that. So you can have individual font styles for each one of the cells, which would help with identifying those particular elements. And then the last one was the alignment. So alignment options are right there, your typical options, left, center, or right. Typically for your headers that show the names of the data, it's good to have those centered. It's just a stylistic choice. Moving right along, filters and hiding and unhiding sheets. Now, why would you want to hide or unhide sheets? Well, obviously, if unhiding them, because I'm going to show you where those are. But if you wanted to hide them, perhaps you did some work of some kind, that you did a lot of messy formulas or something, that you're like, they don't need to see that. So you'll just hide that sheet so they can't see it. But if you hide a sheet, you would be wondering, well, then how do I find it? Well, if you go to View, and there's two hidden sheets here. Let's go to the hidden sheet. And that'll pull that up now. We'll see some data on the screen here that I've prepared ahead of time. By making it available for vision now, you can use the data again that you had hidden away. So this is convenient to keep some of the stuff that maybe you don't want everybody to see right off the bat. You can hide it away and pull it up later when you need it. All right, so for filters, I've got this nice little dates for filters that I set up here. There's a little button right over here. You just hit create a filter over the range of data that you want to filter. So in this case, I'm just going to do this one column. So I'll click on that. And then it's highlighted the top up here. Now, I didn't actually want to include the header above there, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to undo that. I'm going to select the entire data set. I'm going to click it again. There we go. So now it's got the little filter right here on the date line above all the dates. So when I click on it now, the filter option is only going to show the 26th and the 27th. So if I click on that, all that stuff disappears. But you'll note that it made all the rows disappear. So the data set over here was actually impacted by that. So that's something to keep in mind. If you have a filter set up on one column, it's actually going to affect both of them. So what you might want to do if you had something that you want to do like this, you just copy this little set of data, moving it over here, and then paste it over there. And you can do that by right-clicking on it as well. I used Control-C and then Control-V to paste it, but you just select it all, right-click, copy, and then paste it over there. And then again, I can just select it, filter to the date, and there you go. Now I'm only looking at the data that I wanted, and it's not impacting anything else on any other sheet because I have it separated in its own little area. So we're good there. Let's see. All right, so one of those other little chunks of data I had hiding out over here, this one right here, is going to be how I do my little example for charts. So like the filters button, there's another one up here for the charts. So you're going to click on Insert Chart. And because I had this selection of data already there, it knew exactly what to do with it right away. So you can see there's a nice little line chart. You can see the start date, the 28th, progresses accordingly. You can see where the spike of activity is. Real simple, gets the data across eloquently without necessarily needing all these numbers. One thing you might want to do, you can see by looking at the data, the 7th is a very notable day. The most transactions occurred. You might want to hit the aggregate button. That way it'll clearly define every single point within the data. And then what you might want to do too, let's see if I can find it here real quick. Something, yeah, there we go. So right now the label font size is automatically determined, so that way it'll be a best fit for it. But maybe I wanted to make it a little bigger, so that way it'd be a little easier to read. And that'll adjust everything in the chart accordingly, so that way it'll all still fit within the confines of the space. Alternatively, of course, you always have the option just to make it bigger. There you go. So you get a good picture, and everybody can see what's going on with that. All right, so we're looking good. We've gone through the first section here. I know that was all pretty quick, so I wouldn't mind just pausing for a moment. If anybody has any questions or wants me to go through something again, I don't mind. Just let me know.
I have a question. This is Coach Lark from the junior high. If you go to the Google Sheets, so let's say like right now I'm collecting data in A and it's all my students' names, but I need to go past like where the screen where I can't see and I lose it. So I have to like click all the way back and then come all the way forward. For some reason, I'm thinking that I can make the first column right where that you have highlighted like stay and it'll move. I don't know if I'm making sense. That way I don't have to go all the way up. Okay. Yeah, I'm like, there's got to be a button to make my life easier and save a few minutes.
Yeah, I'm trying to remember. I know exactly what you're talking about. I'm just trying to remember where the it's under view.
Okay.
There it is. One column should do the trick. So if I slide over now, yep, there you go.
Aha, lifesaver. Thank you.
All right, so just to go over it again. So no columns. So right now, nothing's frozen. So if you slide over, it just disappears like you were experiencing. And then if you want to do it so that way you can always see that first column. So if you're sliding way over to the right, maybe checking grades or something fun of that nature, you just hit freeze and you want a column. So you just hit one column, click on that, and now it's done. It'll do that until you turn it off.
The same thing with rows.
It can also be applied to rows. So if we unfreeze that one, Get that one out of there. Actually, you can do both at the same time. Why don't we do that? So we'll leave one column in there. So there's the list of names, right? And then along the top, you have the name of the assignments or something along that nature, right? And so then you hit freeze and then freeze the top row. So now you've got this entire top row frozen, so it won't disappear from view, as well as the column. So if you slide all the way over here, you can still see the students' names. And if you slide down, you can still see all of the assignments or whatever, what have yous, still at the top as well. Good question. Does anyone else have any other quick one-offs we can address? Otherwise, I'll move right along.
There was your question.
Got one in the chat.
How to generate a chart. What's the first step for generating a chart?
So the first step, I guess, would be having data that would need it, right? So I guess kind of using the example from the previous thing, creating these frozen views, if you had the student's name, right, and their grades, theoretically, so you could set up a chart that would use the student's name and then their grades. So you could do something like that. So you would select the, math quiz, math assignment, and you wouldn't necessarily use a line chart for that. So, but you'd have your data, right? And this would be for Johnny. And then you would just have the values that are in there. And then you would select the range that the data is occurring in. And then you hit the little insert chart button. Yeah, obviously right now it's not terribly helpful because it's the data in there doesn't really match, but does that help you out? If you'd like, after we get done with this call today, if you guys have questions, concerns, or other whatnots in that regard, I wouldn't mind if you guys want to just send me emails or whatnot, and I can kind of help work through some of those issues, because some of those can be more technical that would be hard for me to cover during the length of this presentation.
Okay, she's good.
All right, so linking data and from the Google Forms, and then also hyperlinks. So let's take a look. So Hal had gone through some of the Google Forms stuff, had shown some of the options there to help both with grading and just communicating the data in general. So what I wanted to show real quick is how you can take advantage of that while looking at the sheets themselves. So here you can see this quiz should look moderately familiar to pretty much everybody in chat. And you'll see the questions, and then the responses section, clicking on that, you'll see over here there is a create spreadsheet button. So when you click on that, some options come up. I could create a new spreadsheet, but I don't want to do that. I've already got my little grading area set up with all my students' data, so I'm going to select an existing spreadsheet. I'm going to hit select. This will come up with all the spreadsheets that I have right now, but the one I want, of course, is the one we're looking at. I'll hit select, and it says linking a spreadsheet. Okay. Once it's done, it'll open the spreadsheet open again for me. And then you'll see now it's got a new tab with the form responses on it and what the answers were, as well as their scores. It's got everything I need. Now, what would you do with this right away, though? Like, I can already see this isn't immediately useful. How would I migrate it over? So there's a lot of complicated ways to do that, so I'm not going to get into specifics with that today. There's going to be some great ways. I'm going to show those examples on Thursday. But the important thing is to know is that this data is now linked, meaning that if anybody else completes a quiz, it'll continue to update this sheet real time, continue to fill those all in for you. And then with the proper setup, you can have those grades moved over to your other sheet where we were talking about before, and just automatically enter all that information for you, taking a lot of the work off your plate. You don't have to sit there and move all the data around, update your grade book, none of that. You can put a lot of that behind you as long as you can get everything figured out. All right, so that's how you do that. Now, let's talk about one other thing, though. So we've got this great little thing that's automatically updating the data. Now, let's just pretend for a moment that I forgot. I was like, okay, what was that assignment? I don't remember. I've got 500 other assignments I did throughout the year, but I can't remember this particular one. There's one quick thing you can do that would really help you out.